Here we go.
I never realized how short that.
Maybe we need to make you a longer intro, right? Maybe we should get you a little longer intro,
right.
just so you have a couple seconds to drink your water.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, here we go. This week, these few days, it's really a few days. If I did a whole week, it'd be crazy. All right, but I think, this just happened to pop up in my looking at NFL history, and I'm sure Sean will appreciate this one. Sometimes they just kind of work out. So on September 16th, so we're going back a few days, 1937, the then Washington Redskins franchise played its first game in Washington, D.C. at the old Griffith Stadium. In a game, they defeated the New York Giants 13-3. The franchise actually had its start in Boston, Massachusetts in 1932 under the guise of the Boston Braves after George Preston Marshall established the franchise and purchased the right to play in the NFL. George was a larger-than-life showman type guy, basic attention seeker. He named the team after the Boston Braves baseball team at the time. But after very little support in that area, he decided to change things up. Prior to the 1933 season, the nickname was changed to at that time, the Redskins, to give his team their own identity. The team had limited success in Boston and didn't get a lot of support from the community. Because of that, they basically were really all about the hockey team at that time. That's who they were obsessed with. So he was infuriated by this. So Marshall was like, I'm out of here. Decided to change his surroundings and moved the team to the nation's capital, which changed the course of the franchise as they were crowned the NFL champions in their inaugural year in D.C. This 1937 team was led by a rookie quarterback, Slingy Sammy Bowe, and the Redskins were the champs once again in 1942 and have also been victorious in Super Bowls. Has also been successful in Super Bowls as well. So again, guess they didn't do well in Boston, moved to D.C. and the air change, and that's how they started winning all those games and getting championships and had a whole city and town behind them. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, I know he was. I know. Sadly, yes. As were so many showmen of the time. You're 100%, Sean. But yes, he 100% was. So adding to that, he fought integration. It was because of him that previously, remember I talked about all the black quarterbacks that were actually involved. It was already integrated, and he hated that. And he was one of the men that led to the segregation again and kicked out black quarterbacks and black players from the NFL. Sorry, that wasn't part of this, but Sean was right. I just saw him in the comments. Okay, so also on September 16th, 1950, the Cleveland Browns played their first regular season game as part of the NFL. Remember, I talked about a few times I've mentioned the AFL, right? All these different conferences and things like that. So Cleveland Browns started with the All-American Football Conference, where they started playing in 1946. Cleveland businessman Arthur McBride purchased and created the franchise, and they had almost immediate success. The Browns dominated the AAFC, and something that this was the main reason for the conference's demise and closure after the 1949 season ended. 3 teams from the former AAFC moved into the NFL in 1950. The Browns, the Baltimore Colts, and the San Francisco 49ers. The early Cleveland Brown teams were talented and had great players such as Marion Motley, Otto Graham, and Lou Groza on their roster. The schedule makers wanted to show the dominance of the NFL, so they scheduled the Browns, champs of the AAFC in 1949, to open up against the 1949 Philadelphia Eagles, who were the reigning title holders of the NFL in 1949. The NFL expected the Browns to struggle when they entered the league in 1950, but man, were they wrong. The Cleveland squad, in fact, crushed the Philly Eagles to a score of 35-10. So this is when the Browns, people were happy about the Browns back in the day, and they actually won some championships. So no Super Bowl wins, but they were a tough team, and I'm sure everybody wishes the Browns could go back to that era, right? But they actually were formidable, and so they did win a lot of championships pre Super Bowl. Anyway, so 2 teams, right? 2 teams we kind of learn about a little bit more in the NFL, one that was born and kind of moved, and then, of course, again, Cleveland in 1950, who was around a little longer, but then moved to the NFL. And 1917, 1920, I mentioned this last year. This is just the anniversary of the NFL. This is when the NFL was born. Not the modern NFL, but the beginning of the NFL league at Ralph Hayes Pumpmobile Showman in Canton, Ohio. So that's basically kind of where it started. Each team at the time, as I mentioned last year, chipped in $100. So that's how the NFL was formed. Which $100 in 1920, that's a lot of money. So I just want to throw that out there. There's $100, but this is 1920 $100. So even then, you had to be like filthy rich to own, professional teams. And then the last thing, September 18, 1938, a huge defensively dominated game between, guess who? Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. And you know how defensively heavy that game won? The Chicago Bears actually, in this time, 1938, beat the Green Bay Packers by a safety, 2-0. 2-0.
Wow.
Yeah, 2-0.
Say what?
During a downpour. During a downpour. Apparently it was a downpour. The Browns were sloppy. Yeah, people missed field goals. The score happened on the second play of the fourth quarter stanza. Obviously you reference him. When the Bears guard Tom Jones jumped on an errant backwards pass by Packers Arnie Herbert for the 2-pointer. So it was just chance, and it was a messy game. Can you imagine? People complain now when we have these defensive games, right? Can you imagine sitting through this game and it's 2-0?
There would be nothing but television. It'd be television footage of people sleeping in the stands.
Right.
Anyway,
I was excited to hear Tom Jones play football.
Yeah, no, right?
Just kidding.
But what's
It's
new?
not unusual to be loved by anyone.
Right? He calling the signals. What's new, Pussycat? 180. Whoa.
Some good stuff, kind of popped up there. So it was good. I found some good information on, for this week's episode. So I was happy to find a lot of stuff.
Whoa, Delilah. Right? Tom Jones. Delilah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I hear that one.
Nice.
I hear that one all the time by all the old timers.
Right. Yeah, love Tom Jones. Regardless if he played football or sang, Tom Jones was great. Either way.
Anyway, so that's it. There you have it. This day in NFL history. Some good, some bad, some good with bad. That's just history, right?
That's right. That's why it's history, baby. It's not always great, but it's history. Unfortunately, right. But thank you, Delilah, for that. We appreciate that.